Okay, welcome back to members of 121 Community Church in Grapevine, Texas, into our continued study in the theology of Jurgen Moltmann, his latest book, The Living God by John Knox Press, published in English in 2015, in German in 2014. A fairly small volume, 229 pages, but intensely packed with content. Some sections very, very deep, a lot of compressed data, but a tremendous offering by Professor Moltmann for those who have followed his theology over the years. This is not a beginner's book, that's for certain. This is a manuscript where Professor Moltmann assumes that the readers will be those who are familiar with his work and familiar with his theology and have already internalized his theology, and therefore have a jump on seeing where he's going and a better chance of viewing the material as accessible. He's more or less approaching this manuscript in the same way that Hegel approached his readers. He assumes that we are within that circular logic of his system, and that wherever he begins, wherever he speaks, we can automatically integrate it because we are so well adapted to having already internalized his theological system. And that is certainly my case. I have already done that over the years, and that's why I find this book to be one of the better manuscripts by Professor Moltmann. I think it's a tremendous teaching on the doctrine of God. It's a entirely new approach, and he does introduce the doctrine of Henosis, which has not been formally addressed ever that I can remember. And so this doctrine of Henosis is a very new offering into the world of systematic theology, and I think it's a tremendous offering. And here he is this month turning 90 years old. His mind is still extremely sharp. We have extremely deep and precise content in this manuscript. We have the introduction of a new doctrine, the doctrine of Henosis, the doctrine of the unifying activity of God in lifting all of creation into unity with God's self. A powerful doctrine which abbreviates all the attributes with regard to God and all the attributes with regard to the Trinitarian history of God. And so it is an abbreviating, overarching concept of Henosis, but then it breaks down in very interesting ways within the realm of participation on the side of the believer, and that's what we've been looking at within the second half of the book. And now at the close of the book, we only have this lesson and one additional lesson. At the close of the book, he introduces a very transformative teaching on the doctrine of transcendence, what constitutes transcendence in the realm of God's kingdom as perceived as Henosis. What is the concept of transcendence within the kingdom of God as being interpreted as a kingdom of God's unifying Henosis? And if you look at block 1, we're going to look at transcendence as a concept. Moltmann says future history loses its attraction if there's no transcendent force, and there's no transcendent form for history as a whole. If we lose that syntactical force and that syntactical form for history, then future history loses its attraction. But Moltmann goes on to say that as believers, we posit messianic qualification. As believers in Jesus Christ, we hold as our motivational base a conviction which will posit a messianic qualification of present finite experience with our forward-looking hope that takes up the forward-inclined potentialities of dunamis spirit, and we do qualify reality with our messianic qualification positings. He gives a preliminary definition of transcendence. Within the process of Henosis, it equals posited thinking of hope. He's going to call that perceiving reason, okay? And that comes right straight out of Hegel, and he has not been shy in telling us in a very overt way in this manuscript. He has mentioned Hegel by name quite a few times. He's not trying to conceal that at all. He is firmly taking up Hegel's theological position and in a very affirmative way and announcing very overtly in the book and in the manuscript that he is taking up Hegel in this manuscript. He certainly does so by this definition where transcendence is the realm of positing. And it is that posited thinking of hope that exists as a posited sign model within our realm of positing, a realm that was articulated by Hegel in his philosophy and in his theology, which becomes the realm of the true and becomes that internal externality. It's not really subjective, it's not really objective, it's best described as an internal externality of a window filter through which we view all of reality and through which we interpret all of reality. But it becomes the realm of the true, the realm of the real. And so his preliminary definition is transcendence within the process of Henosis is a posited thinking of hope. So that's very much in line with Hegel. History within Henosis means confrontation. It's the confrontation of the old world pattern with the new creation sign pattern that we're going to construct in our realm of positing as that posited thinking of hope. There will be a new creation sign pattern that will be posited there by the believer. It will include perceiving God as the evoking and abiding God that Moltmann already presented in this manuscript. God is the evoking and the abiding and the liberating God. And we also will include perceiving God as the indwelling God, the indwelling presence of God's Trinitarian history or God's Trinitarian homeland of the wide space of liberation and potentiality available to the believer. So what does transcendence mean as incarnate and as participatory? Well, block 2, we're going to take a look at the incarnate perceiving. The magic of reality consists of its enclosure of dunamis potentialities of spirit. Now remember, dunamis is the potentiality of spirit, energia is the actuality of spirit. But remember, dunamis is that potential dynamite. It's the power as a potential power within history and within finite reality that is latent and yet ready to be actualized as an actuality of God's future. It's ready. It's on the very verge of coming into actualization. It's asking for our participation, and it shows up as a signification rising up with infinitude, and it evokes our participation. So so within our finite reality, there are instances, those signification instances of dunamis potentialities of spirit. We participate in God's Henosis stream, and Moltmann calls it the Henosis stream within the ocean of possibilities. We participate in God's Henosis stream by looking into reality's future and perceiving these dunamis potentialities that arise up as instances of signification. Therefore, we create eschatological time by grasping insight, and thought the signs of the anticipated future. It's a thoughtful grasping. So we're going to grasp and not really hold into the subjective, but we're going to grasp, shape, and posit in thought these significations that are rising up. We're going to grasp them, internalize, shape, and posit the future, the anticipated future, as a participation in the stream of Henosis. And as I said, he does metaphorically describe these ocean of possibilities as that which surrounds the stream of God's Henosis. And then if you look at note 4, therefore we participate in God's stream of Henosis by creating the realm of posited perceiving reason. Our posited signs of anticipation come to exist as the true primal temporality. The realm of positing is the realm of the true. It is the real reality of God's kingdom that we anticipate and seek to actualize, and it's more real and more true than our surface temporality. And then B, this moment in process is both real and utopian, and this perceiving reason never fully captures the truth conceptually. It always perceives in a mirror darkly. It is always open to revision. It is always open to the return out of our proclamation and differentiation. There's always a return of the surplus of promise. Therefore, our realm of posited perceiving reason is always open to revision and open to these returns of the surplus of spirit and the surplus of promise. That takes us on to Block 3 and Transcendence as the Last Judgment. As a practical phronesis, the content of perceiving reason is abbreviated under the concept of novum as a rejuvenating life, a positive rejuvenating life. And this novum of rejuvenating life creates the dawning doxa glory of eternity within finite reality. It triggers and creates the dawning doxa glory of eternity. Therefore, participation in God's wide space of dunamis potentiality is a new birth. It is a hope out of the experience of egeiro raising up and egeiro resurrection. It is evoked by the mystery of the object, by our existential interest, by our awakened senses, and it leads to practical action, practical phronesis, practical wisdom. And that will be a negation of any dominating type approach. We negate any knowledge that attempts to fragment and dominate finite reality. Instead, it is relational. Our participatory knowledge is relational through empathy and receptivity. It's transformative. We bring about change by our perceiving reason that anticipates the future of community. So both the perceiving reason and the practical phronesis enlist creative imagination. In reflection, by integrating past and present possibilities into our self-understanding. In anticipation, by those improvements that we posit as dokunta suppositions, which we will refine through dialogue with others in community, and through the realm of positing itself as our sign model images for the future, and as a horizon of the posited end of all things. It's very much a refinery where we refine the truth through dialogue with others, and through that dialogue we work on our dokunta suppositions of the true and refine them into better and better aspects of righteousness and better significations of God's kingdom of Henosis. But then we do come out of that dialogue, we can concretize and actualize that posited sign model through practical wisdom, which is phronesis. Phronesis equals practical wisdom, and we put that into practice through differentiation and proclamation, and then we anticipate the return of the surplus of spirit. There's always a surplus that leads us to stretch out to the next possibilities. And if you take a look at the right side of the chart, we'll take a look at our affirmation summary. And if you look at the block 1, our perceiving reason as messianic qualification defines the concept of transcendence. As incarnate, we take up dunamis potentialities within God's Henosis stream. Our practical phronesis evolves out of our dokunta suppositions, which are exchanged at the dialogue threshold of community, where they become refined and purified to become even more powerful and to work toward energia actualization.